Alright, now comes the time to create a road for our runners to run on. So to do that, we are first going to create a new 3D object, which is going to be a cube. Okay, perfect. So for now, let's hide or remove our plane. So the cube will be a little bit lower. So I think minus 0.5 on the y-axis is pretty good. Let's make it 10 units wide for now and maybe 10 units long. Okay, perfect. We can also press T to get the rect tool and make the cube a little bit longer. Okay, perfect. So this is our base road. So let's call it a chunk. Okay, perfect. Let's call it chunk renderer. Nice. Let's make this chunk renderer a child of another game object, and let's call this game object chunk. Perfect. So I'm doing that to be able to spawn multiple chunks later on, make our road procedural or more random if you wish. Okay, cool. What we need to understand here is that we are going to have multiple sizes for our chunks. So maybe this one is going to be short. So let's call it short chunk. Let's make another one and move it a little bit on the x-axis. This one will be longer. So let's call it maybe, let's set it 20 units long for now. Or maybe, no, 20 is good. And let's call it medium chunk. Then we can create another one, move it a little bit on the z-axis, set it to 30 units long on the z-axis, and we can call this one long chunk. Okay, perfect. So when creating the prefabs, we are going to drop our doors or gates and enemies on these chunks. Okay. Then we will have another game object which will hold a chunk manager script and will be responsible for creating the road procedurally. Okay, I hope this is good. So in this case, we need a little script attached to our chunk to know the exact length of our chunk. Perfect, let's do that. Okay, so here open the scripts folder and create a new script called chunk. Okay, so let's select our short chunk and drop the chunk script on it. All right, let's open it. First off, we want to create a new header again for our settings. Let's create a new property with a serialized field to show it in the inspector. It's going to be private. It's going to be a vector 3. All right, and let's call it size. Perfect. Then we want to be able to visualize our size, the size of our chunk in the scene view. So for that, there is a cool method called onDrawGizmos. So when drawing the gizmos, Unity will call this method. So you can implement this method in any of your scripts and draw whatever you want. So in our case, we want to draw the size of the cube or of the chunk. So first off, let's select a color. So let's say gizmos.color equals maybe color.blue, not black for now, but blue. Okay. Then we want to draw something. So we are going to draw a wire cube. It's just the outline of a cube, basically. So let's say gizmos.drawWireCube. This takes as argument the center of the cube and the size of the cube. So the center of the cube will be the position of our chunk. So let's say transform that position. And the size of the cube will be our size. Okay, perfect. Let's head back to Unity and check if this works. So this is a chunk. Let's set the size to 10 on the x-axis, maybe 10 on the y-axis, and you can already see that we have a blue outline right here. And on the z-axis, let's say 10 units. Perfect. This encapsulates our chunk on the z-axis. Don't mind the x and y. I know that this is offset on the y-axis, but it's not an issue for now because we only need the Z component here. The X and Y is just for a better visualization. Okay, click on the three dots here and copy the component. Let's select our medium chunk and pass the component as new. All right, now we just need to make our length 20. All right, same thing here, pass the component as new for the long chunk, and let's set the Z value to 30. Perfect. We now have our chunks to work with. But when making our chunk manager, we will need to get this Z value. So let's create a quick method here. It's going to be public. It's going to return a floating value, which will be the length of our chunk. Okay, so it will simply return the size.z. Awesome. In the next lesson, we are going to create our chunk manager and create our first road the runners can run on. Let's go.